Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of our podcast. We're very fortunate to have with us Dino Carella from Italy. Dino, hello, my friend. Welcome.
Hi, Richard. Thank you very much for having me.
As you know, we connected on LinkedIn a while ago, and I can honestly say I fell in love with you.
Same
Which is
here. Same here.
so it's not something I say very often. So yeah, I think I resonate with you at a very deep level. I don't know what that is, but I do connect with you. And apart from what you do, there is a connection between us, and I think a lot of people feel that connection with you, which is something in your personality or what you are, I suppose.
Thank you. I feel the same, Richard. I feel the same completely.
Wonderful. So Dino, we've been chatting for a while, and you are a an executive coach. Is that right?
No, I'm a coach, and I know that there is this need to define my line of coaching, and I've decided to move from leadership coaching to the dreadful word life coaching. This is something that I hated so much, and we had a conversation about this. And you know, the combination of the two words really don't make any justice
Yeah,
to
let's talk about that for a second because
yeah.
that was one of the things that I also really grappled with the word coach and life. And I thought, what am I here to tell somebody that I know better about life? It's like, okay, a tennis coach, great. Okay, you know more about tennis than me and you can teach me. But how can I claim to know that I know better than somebody else? And it really drove me mad. And we had this conversation before. I made you swallow
Yeah.
that name, and it's so difficult. So rather than, and then the coach part as well. I mean, a coach is a guy who goes, "Go run there, do this, and do that," and that's nothing like what we do. So tell us, tell us what. Let's just talk a little bit about, rather than the term. Let's park that off because people love boxes, and myself and you don't, because we come from a background where everybody put us into a box, or we were trying to achieve or live up to that box. Well, I'm a professional fundraiser. Okay, so now I have to be, act, and live in this particular way to resemble that particular identity, and we're so beyond that. So I will do you the honor of not categorizing yourself, but I tricked you into see your reaction in that particular way.
Thank you.
So Dino, tell me a bit about your um, journey into becoming what you're doing right now, whatever form that takes. What sort of what was your journey about? I know you've written the book, which I just want we'll talk about a bit later. But where did you come from, and why did you end up here, wherever that is?
Well, it's a pretty broad question. Let me say that just not to go too far back into my childhood, but I am a former corporate leader. I spent almost 30 years in corporations, and and uh, and my journey is really not separated with my life journey, in the sense that my journey as a professional is not separated as my journey as a. And I didn't realize that until very recently, that there is something that can be done to align whatever we do with who we are. Let me be more specific. I spent the first part of my life trying to achieve goals, trying to, become more successful, to climb up the ladder. And considering where I'm coming from, I have no academic background. I was a kid living on the street, in the streets. I was a very bad student, and I really, as you said, I couldn't be put into any box, and I always felt misplaced at school and the environment, because I couldn't understand why we had to comply with certain things. So I had several failures And so I think what I've done, I put all my efforts to redeem those failures and become a successful manager, which I did until one time, with my family and everything about my life collapsed, because simply I was building all this big castle on no foundations. Were just my illusions that if I could run faster than my fear, I could win the fear. So I cannot say that one day this happened, although one particular day something more meaningful to me happened. It's been a process of collapsing all my illusion of having to become something, or having to be better, not feeling inadequate, feeling successful, feeling, being the strong guy that people would refer to, not only at work, but in my family. And so I was actually disempowering everybody around me, because what I found is that the more you play that role, and the more you will surround yourself with people that need you to take that role. And so you justify your thoughts and say, okay, you see, this is the right thing because I'm needed to be the strong man. And so when I saw with clarity that really what I was trying to do was to avoid pain, I wasn't able to sustain pain. Then something very magic, let me say, happened, because I could see things very clearly, where I was coming from, really. And so from that moment onward, all these ideas about, becoming a successful manager, a powerful person, a great husband, a great father, all collapsed. And the funny thing is, I grew in career even more. and so, but I didn't care. What I really cared was to be truly honest with and comfortable with being uncomfortable with my pain. And so seeing my vulnerability made me open up to people vulnerability, starting from when we say people, to me, we don't mean the general public. We mean those people that we are very attached emotionally. So it could be father, mother, your spouse, your children. And that's the very first layer of it. And so, and especially parents. So when you start seeing this in you then accept more the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities of your parents that you always look up to, right? Emotionally, you look up to. And being able to accept that has made a tremendous difference. And so here's why now I feel less uncomfortable saying, this is really what I want to do, like being a coach, because I've actually discovered that unconsciously I was coaching all of my time, not always in the right way, because until I was unconscious, I was pretending to give answers. That's why I hated the coaches so much, because there was a presumption of knowing in me that I hated to think somebody would come higher up the scale and tell me what to do. But when I did it properly, without even knowing it, people would feel empowered. So, and I realized just recently that this is what it is really. It's when people go away, feel empowered, and they don't feel like you need to be there because you are their emotional crutch. You actually liberate people to be who they are. And if I can be of any help in that process, then this is what I love doing. Because it pretty much connects with, with my journey of liberation from conditioning, if you want.
Okay, so Dino, thank you for that. Let's get into a little more detail. I just want to rewind some of what you mentioned. You mentioned that you were hoping that you'd be able to run faster than your fear. Did you know what your fear was at that time, or was it only later on that you investigated what that fear was?
I didn't know at that time.
Okay.
And
So,
that is part of really, being unconscious, is that you think you think you know exactly where you want to be for the right reason, until you realize you've never been conscious. And
so then what were you afraid of
what I've
in
realized,
hindsight?
yeah,
Yeah.
in hindsight, is that of feeling pain.
Describe what that means. Pain of what? Pain of loss, pain of suffering?
Pain of the suffering. And the suffering, one particular thing that came to me is I was also needy. I needed an emotional crutch without admitting it to myself, because I couldn't see that. I thought I was the strong guy, right? So I needed an emotional crutch, for example, in my mother, which in fact, from a spirit perspective, perhaps is much younger than my spirit. And to be able to see that and admit that to yourself, it's painful, because it destroys all the things that you were looking up to, and it puts you in a position where you welcome other people's weaknesses, vulnerabilities, as much as everybody else. And so, and so this is really, to me, what the next step is. If we, words are always horrible. The use of, the next step and stuff like that. It's whatever you say, it doesn't really, it can be contradicted the next minute, but it's a shift in consciousness that allows you to embrace the fact that there are no emotional crutches that you can refer to, that you are completely and totally alone, in the good sense, not in the bad sense. Like,
So,
yeah,
so yeah. So you were talking about just to go back, and then we're going to come back to this second aspect, which I think is really important. Where to go from there? So you mentioned that you needed an emotional crutch, and you found that in your mother. But what were you using her for, and what fear or pain were you? The fear is that one day this inevitable thing may happen, and so you use someone or something to mask that pain. But what was that you were afraid of happening, that, or afraid of, that you needed a crutch for?
that there was going to be nobody really for me to go to,
For
for being solaced, for being taken care of, for being reassured.
uh-huh. So you were not feeling very assured of yourself.
Yes, and in hindsight, as you said, in hindsight, I realized that all the things that I've done, all this thing about being the strong man, was trying to really hide the fact that there wasn't really the ability for anybody to be there for me, unless I saw the beauty of who they are the way they are, not the way I thought I needed.
Okay, so you needed them to be strong for you. You needed them to be, but they weren't that. Is that what you mean? Because of course we got the you natively speak Italian, right? So then now your brain is probably doing the translation as
Yes,
well. So, yeah.
I think, when I was a kid, my mother wasn't well, health healthy wise, and and was the weakest part in the relationship between my father and my mother. So my mother was weak healthily, and I found myself having to absorb the pain of seeing my mother in that way, and somehow perhaps I've muscled up against that pain, not to feel it, not to see clearly what was there all the time. There was a fragility, not just in the body, in the health, but in the spirit, in the mind, in the growth of the person that you end up depending the most. The relationship with the mother is such a profound relationship. Is where the roots are, and if you have an unbalanced relationship, not because you argue or anything like that, but because there is something at an emotional level, deep level, that you haven't unfolded and clarified, and so clearly there is something always in you making you feel, uncomfortable, because you depend on that emotional, on the home. When you go to your mother, you go home, wherever your mother might be.
Right.
And
So
so,
it makes you feel like you belong, because most of us in this world don't know what or who we are, and so we cling to familiar places and familiar faces to remember what we are, because we get lost in our thoughts, in our minds, in our work, and all the rest of it.
right. So having to deal with the fact that your mother, so mother and father have to play two different roles, but clearly so important. But from a foundation perspective, where your mother is, and we call it Mother Earth, Mother Nature, for this particular reason for me, because you feel home. And so realizing that what you thought was supposed to be your home, no matter what, that is not, because it's another human being with all the fragility and the emotional needs that you also have. It opens up the door, I think, for me, to liberate from all these needs to be welcomed by, supported emotionally by somebody.
Yeah. So basically, the feeling inside of you was lacking, and so you needed someone to comfort you, to make you feel better, to make you feel a certain way. So if you had to investigate in hindsight, what was your overarching feeling of yourself in this world?
At that time, before I started to have this shift of mind, my overarching feeling of myself was that I knew I had to work hard to demonstrate my adequacy, to demonstrate how good I was, how strong I was, how successful I was. And
Which means
so,
it's all those things you didn't feel about yourself. You didn't feel strong. You didn't feel adequate. You didn't feel important or successful in any way.
exactly. The thing is that when you're doing it, you don't know that that's the reason why you're doing it. Because if you did, you would drop all that silly stuff in the same moment you realize it. So that's why I'm saying that at that time, I really thought I knew what I was doing, because the external world was giving exactly the result that I had in mind. So I want to have a successful career, and I did. I want to do this particular, I want to achieve this particular goal. I achieved it, and I even exceeded it. So the external world will give you the tangible results that you actually know what you're doing. The thing is, you don't, because the very reason why you're doing that stuff is because you don't feel it inside. You didn't realize it inside. I'm not saying that everybody works like that. I did work like that. And some people, and you can see the difference between those leaders that are at ease and comfortable, and you feel that there is no tension in their energy, in their presence, and they have higher position. There are very few people like that. I've seen many organizations, and I've been around for a while, and I've seen them very few leaders like that, because what they achieved is nothing different from who they are. They simply flow with who they are, and they are granted with all that stuff because it's who they are, and they are comfortable. Whilst the majority of leaders are people that are on the grind, people that are trying to maintain a position of power or to argue their way against somebody else, and competing and demonstrating how good they are whilst the other are not. Those guys are still trapped into an unconscious model of having to demonstrate something to themselves they're not aware of.
So Dino, you mentioned modern day leaders or leaders as such, or people in up the ladder, down the ladder. It doesn't really matter where you stand on the ladder. You're always, uh, I call it the monkey on your back. There is this monkey on your back telling you, you need to do more, you need to be more, you're not adequate enough, you need to do this and you need to do that. And like you said, the outside world does confirm you up to a point. But I think the great opening happens in people's lives is when the outside world no longer starts confirming you. And that's the only time that anybody ever looks inwardly. Otherwise, you just continue going. And what we would hope, me and you, is that somebody on the way up to the ladder, before they hit their heads against the wall, would say, hold on, where am I going? And why am I not evaluating what's inside of me and what's driving me? Because your driving force is really important. So, I would like to ask you if you had a similar type of thing that made you introspect, or was, because at some point you continuously achieving and it's all coming together, but then I believe when life favors you, it gives you a little slap and says, "Hold on a second here. Maybe it's not what you should be doing and how you're doing." And you mentioned it wasn't one moment, but there was one moment. And so, what made you stop in your tracks? Because that's the common thing I find with anybody that's been on any transformation, is that something just goes, "Whoa." Did you have that, or not?
Yes, I did. And there was a time where I was between 39 and 42 that I went through a very deep crisis. I was very, very depressed. And I separated whilst I have a child that, to me, that was like taking my heart out of my chest and throw it into the bin. I really wanted to die every day for the pain I was suffering. And so at the same time, during that time, my father died, and I was working mad hours, even weekends. There was no such a thing as weekends, or maybe nights, because I conference call with the other side of the world, and I had auditors in the corporation checking every single thing, and it lasted a couple of years, this thing. And I went out of home as well, because when I separated, I had a bag with my clothes, and I wasn't sure where I'm going to sleep that night, particular night. So everything I knew collapsed, all my certainties. And I was really trying to fix all these problems using the same qualities that I thought were useful and got me to be a successful person in business. So I was saying to myself, I've got to resolve this. I'm clever enough. I'm smart enough. I'm determined enough. I can make it. I can resolve this. How can I resolve it? I'm right. I'm right. I know I'm right. And this is wrong. And she's wrong. And all this thing. And until one day, really, all this thing collapsed. Something I read a few years after, this thing about quote by William Blake, I believe, the fool that persists with his folly become wise. This is really what happened to me. So I was trying to resolve all my existential problem using my mind. And so when I saw how silly that was, it's not like my virtue. Like, finally I take a decision to see things in a different way. No, it didn't happen that way. My decision were to fix it, to fix all the problems, until the seeing came through me and showed me that, you're suffering, you're in pain, you're in a mess. Just accept it. This is it. Leave the mess. Leave the mess. There's nothing you can do about the way she behaves, the way they behave. And I saw that there was something in me, the way I behaved, that there was nothing I can do because I was so unconscious. And at that, I spent, I can't remember how much time I spent after that particular moment of 3 years of pain, that I felt so light and at peace with all the troubles that I had that I could not even imagine that could possibly be a solution. So the solution was not to fix the problem, was to accept it all. But that was not a decision I took. It's difficult to explain it, but it's something that happens to you, not because of you.
Which is very powerful. You go through life thinking that you know what life is and how to fix problems until all of it becomes so unsurmountable, and then you're faced under the weight of your own creations and you can't wiggle your way out of it, which is so profound. And it takes people a lifetime. There's this wonderful expression that says that youth is wasted on the young, that we 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 go through this life in our 20s and we're achieving and we're doing these things and I got this, and of course there is the beginning phases when you're just like, I don't know what the hell, mommy, daddy, who am I, right? You don't know what you are, and you're gullible and you're foolish and you're just learning, just teach me, what is this life? And then they give you these set of programs and things. This is what you must do, son. You must be successful, son. You must tell your wife to do this, and your children should be like this, and you must always do this, and you must always do that. And you're like, okay, I got the program. And then you go and spend. So first you rebel. Your teenage years is like, no, I don't want to do that stuff, dad. I can do it myself, whatever. And then you realize as you're going into your 20s, much later, that you're actually doing everything your dad told you to do, but you just pretended like you rebelled against all of that, right? And it's your your mom as well, right? Same thing with your mom. You're like, I'll never do what mom says. You see that, and then you become a copy of them, right? And then so you go with thinking that you've done such a wise thing by being the cavalier to go and do things to your opposite. I remember once my wife told me in my late 30s or something, she said, you're just like your dad. And I said, how dare you? I spent all my life trying not to be like my dad. How dare you say I'm anything like him? Like, I don't do the same things. You just like him. I was like, you ignorant woman. She was right. She was right. And I'm so glad because yeah. So we do all of this, and then the 20s and 30s, and then you say, you see, I did it my way, and look how good I am. Look, I've done this and I've done that. Not realizing you become a duplicate of the same thing that their parents taught them, and that's why they end up in a particular way. And then you get to this point, and then life bangs you against the wall. Divorce, illness, loss, suffering, all the rest of it, and you say, huh, what happened there? How did all of that happen? And now you return back to the child, going around googly goo, teach me, tell me, whatever. Except now you're even more afraid now. Now you're more afraid because the first time you listened, this is the drama that you had. So you become very skeptical. And you say, I got to make sure I listen carefully because I remember the last time I just remembered what everybody said, ended up doing this. And so now you become more reticent to what everybody says. And so now you've got to develop, by instinct, you got to start listening to something else inside of you, right? Because that stuff that you were listening to does no longer works for you. And so then you go and plot your own path. And I think then you align. And then finally, if I could describe where I ended up, is I became at peace with myself after, my God, so long, but I didn't come up with the whole new beliefs and structures and way forward. I just had to get comfortable with the fact that I have no damn idea.
Absolutely. Rishad, you know, there is a lot of talk about spirituality, right? And immediately the word spirituality takes not everybody, but most people to some kind of imaginary world where a lot of great emotions take you and you live a happy and beautiful and ecstatic life. To me, that is exactly the same dynamic, trying to find something, trying to replicate an emotion that you know because you want to feel comfortable. Again, searching for an emotional crutch. But what you just said, to me, that's true spirituality. When you drop all the belief, not that you as an action, but because you had that realization, automatically all belief drop. And because you have no belief whatsoever on anything, but apart from the fact that you know that you are, and that you know that you don't know. And I want to say something more, that you realize that there's nothing to be known, then you're open. You're totally open to life, to see, to learn with curiosity, with the curiosity of a kid. You mentioned that because the kid doesn't even ask a question, you know, if I know this, I will be more of that. The kid wants to play. He's excited about the discovery in itself, the
Yeah.
play in itself.
But that doesn't
So,
come, that doesn't come just like that, you know. It's
no,
also something that I want to remind you of in your journey is very similar to mine. And that's why I'm going to fill in the blanks of your journey, because it seems to be the same as my journey, is that you don't just get this realization that okay, discard all beliefs. For me, and you can tell me if it's similar to yours, I had to realize what are conditioned beliefs. In other words, where did all these beliefs come from, right? I should be like this. Even how you suspect certain people to be a certain way, and you say, "What is he saying?" and "Can I trust him?" and all. You realize this all you've made all these judgments, all these assumptions. You put people into boxes, even and then later on, you start questioning the spiritual side, God and me and the universe and all the rest of it. But that does, if you can't get over the layer of your conditioned belief, you can't even make that leap into, I actually don't know anything about anything. And that's the critical level of unlearning. It's the unlearning phase, right? You've got to say, look, this hasn't worked for me. And I don't want to bring it anymore. Right? Did you experience any of that?
it is like that. This is what I meant when I said it is not that you drop your belief, because you drop your belief, it implies that you are deciding to take your belief away. Who's this you that is deciding? Still your ego. So there is no such a thing as you drop your belief. I think, and I'm totally in agreement with what you say, is as soon as you see your conditioning, that at the same time your belief drops, because seeing the conditioning, it's enough to for them to be dropped. Yeah, what I was saying is that at least what I've experienced is not that you become more clever to see from a higher place your beliefs that are somewhere, and then you say, now I drop the beliefs because I'm acquiring another belief, which is a better belief. Not at all. To me, what happened is that I saw so clearly my conditioning, the attempt of my mind to have power over something existential, which you cannot have any power on. You can just live through. You cannot manipulate or adjust to fix it the way you want it to be fixed. When I saw that effort was such a presumption idea of the mind, of the ego, Then the moment you see it, I saw it, it dropped automatically together with all the beliefs. And as you said, it's not that now I know anything about anything. And that is the most spiritual thing to me. It's because you become so basic, so grounded, that you don't seek your roots, your motherly roots, into your mother necessarily as a person, but as a condition of your being rooted to what is right now, here, and without any will to manipulate it to serve your purpose. I'm not sure whether I could express that.
Yeah. It's very similar to many of the teachings out there. Although you came to realize it by your own journey, I'm assuming, right? You came to this own realization yourself that you should only be, or you can only be grounded in the present moment.
Yes, Richard. As I said to you, I'm not an academic person. I have a tendency to think, okay, to be a little bit of a philosopher. Since I was a kid, I've always been philosophizing and thinking deeply about things, but I never studied much. And what happened is that after this happened, I started to read a lot of books, and thanks to these books and to people that could explain this stuff in such a great way, that I was able to articulate better my thoughts and fix really in my mind the way to explain it, because otherwise I wasn't able to explain anything. I was just living the thing without knowing what happened. And so I started to learn, this is what I do. I experience first, then I go read about it.
But this is the correct way, I believe. The way that we're supposed to engage with life is through direct encounters, direct experience, and by experience. So whether you read later on to explain it or not is highly immaterial. What most people do is that they go and learn how to be through a book and have no direct experience of it. So, wisdom is the conglomeration or the passing by of knowledge that then turns into wisdom because it's put into action. Otherwise, you become a great book carrier or quote carrier and knowledge carrier. So, I think very much similar to my journey and your journey is that I experienced it and I knew it. And now I had to, if I wanted to explain it to the world, then I could do that. So when I go and read books about different topics, it's more to get a confirmation of the feeling that I have within myself or a knowing. And I think that's precisely what you would do in your coaching and what I do in my coaching is to get the order straight. So I'm not here to teach you how you should be. I'm going to teach you to go and find out yourself. And then I'll tell you later on what it is in a particular way. Would that be?
Well, not sure. That's the way I would say it for me, but definitely 100% with you that I'm not gonna teach anything to anybody, and unless I'm asked to give, my opinion on certain things, my advice, I won't give any advice, nor my opinion, nor I'm going to conclude anything. The thing is, what I found so appealing to me in the coaching is that I was trying to find a way to be useful. I'm not sure this is the right way to saying it, but the thing is, if I just stays at that with my realization, I just disappear from the world, and I know that I cannot do that because I still have to make a living, right? I'm gonna make it very basic. We all have to work, unless we are rich by, heritage or something. We have to work. So, thing is, I'm not interested in giving my time for anything that is not aligned with my heart. And aligned to my heart is I can help people find their silence, then I'm happy. And then I'm happy to make money and work. Otherwise, I would be even happy not to work any longer if I didn't have that need. So to me, the point that makes it so worthwhile is that because now I'm much more silent within, I can really listen. Because before I wasn't really listening. I was always ready to give you my opinion, my view of the world, my suggestions, advices, and so on. And that's not coaching to me. Not the way I see coaching. So the way I see coaching is that because I'm much more silent than I've ever been, I can listen. And in this listening, there is the active part of understanding, where your limiting beliefs and made you to come to me. So by asking questions with that sensitivity, or I'm not sure whether it's the right word to use, Rishad, but with that understanding, if I can ask you the right word that would help you do your own meditation, it's a kind of meditation, right? So in the conversation, you hear a story, you hear a goal, the person wants to achieve a goal or wants to resolve some kind of problems, although we don't deal with problem, but with goals, because psychologists and psychiatry deal with problems, with problems, but we deal with goals, right? And so being so silent, you see what you help the guy with the right, asking the right questions, the person to inquire, to self-inquiry. So to the point where they have this moment where they say, I see it. I see now. It doesn't have to be something that I see as well. As long as they see what they see, it's good enough. So whatever makes sense to them, it's my job. It's how I see that I can put my silence to service, because I'm not gonna tell them unless I'm asked, in which case I'm a tool in their hands. I'm not gonna teach anything or say anything or conclude anything. But I'm happy for them to find their own conclusions from which to start a new journey. So not conclusion like, no, now I know, but to say, oh, okay, this was my limiting belief, this was my block, this was my conditioning and all that, and so now I can move forward. And if they don't ever come back to me, I think I've done a good job. So the thing is, I'm not gonna tell them this is what is, because we are all unique and we are all at a certain point in our journey, right? And so as long as they find a stumbling block and they're able to see it and move forward, that's good enough, because it's their journey, it's not mine. So it has to be their own teaching, not mine, their own reflection, their own meditation, and they use me to do their meditation. And because I'm there to really listen, because I don't have any noise, so and basically I'm present. And present doesn't mean becoming numb and without thought. It means becoming even more acutely interested and attentive to what people are talking about, not just the words, but what the words are triggered by, so that you can ask questions. And if these questions are good enough, they will be, and if they are ready, that's the important part, to see them, then they will do the growth that is empowering, because it comes from them, not from me. And so what I was saying, I think the last thing I said is that if if they don't come back to me anymore, then really means the coaching is being a good coaching, because they are empowered and they can go ahead and do their stuff and be who they are.
Wonderful. that's yeah, it's different to what becoming a crutch on the person that you require. So I love your authenticity. I love your unique approach, which I suppose is not as unique, but it's beautiful. And I think what people lack so much these days is someone who's entirely present, who is not interested in promoting a specific agenda or way of thinking or philosophy or ideology, and can just be the space for you to resolve your own stuff. It's rare, and you don't know the value of that until you've experienced someone like this. I haven't met anyone like me. What I'm doing now, until now. Now I meet many. I meet you, I meet me, and we realize that more than anything else, someone that does what we do, whatever we call that, and the coach word is not the best word, then you could say a space holder, but then then there's other implications with that too. I mean, you just never know. But I think that's one of the most crucial things that coaches, for the lack of any better word, and anybody else that can come up with a better word, please. So like I was saying, is that to be a space for someone is a vital aspect that the world today really needs, because there's so much opinion, there's so much telling you what to do and how to do it. There isn't a lack of books and life methods on how you should live and what you should do and all the rest of it. And how many people are just there saying, just do it your way? What's your way? My way. I don't have a way. Of course you do. And people don't, because like when we're brought up, right? Well, didn't your mother and father teach you? Didn't your friends? Didn't your teacher? All of that stuff. And now you're doing something very uncomfortable to people. You're saying, go into you. Well, how do you know? I don't know these things. I'm an idiot. That's why I called you to tell me what I should do. Well, there's your problem. You keep on asking other people, and what about you and what you want to do? So absolutely see the value of that. So Dino, is there a practice that you do regularly that keeps you in a good space, if you want to call it that?
No, Richard, there is no practice. I don't practice anything. At least not that I'm aware of.
Well, then let's talk about your awareness. How do you engage with life?
It's not a thing that I engage with life. I live, Richard. I mean, why do I need to add something to what is, right? So if you deeply had this realization that really there is nothing more meaningful than just being present, not because you are making an effort, you are practicing presence, or you're practicing gratitude, or you're practicing. But let me say this to you. I think practices are useful for some people, but they are useful only when they get to the point of dropping them. Because otherwise, why do you need to practice anything? Because you don't feel strong enough in that. You don't feel secure enough in that without a practice, right? You don't feel anchored enough in whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, that you practice it. So I don't practice. I think I have this thing inside that most of the time, I cannot say all the time, but most of the time, it's a natural attention, that it's a natural awareness that That's nothing to be practiced. It's you. So because you wake up in the morning and you are, that's all there is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure
Yeah,
whether it's
and
making any sense.
it's not supposed to make sense, because that's what people want. They want something to practice, and they want a method, and they want this, and they want that. And it's very unsettling for them to listen to this and say, what do you mean? I mean, it's just the same dialogue with the child, right? You see the child giggling and laughing and eating sweets and running around and not judging anyone, not doing anything. And you ask them, could you tell me what's your daily practice? Because you're extraordinary and I'm here suffering in my life away. How can I be more like you? And the child says, what practice? What is there? It is. Now, they won't even say it is life, it is this, it is that. It it is. It is. And that's like, as a child you can get away with it, but as an adult, but come on, you've come so far. Well, that's what I'm here to tell you. There isn't.
Yeah, I
There-
think perhaps there is a use in all the practices, which is and all the beliefs. The use is that let's say that you know the Bible upside down, backward, you know it, you totally know it, or whatever other religious book, and you practice it and you apply it, and you apply it so much that you know every single thing. People refer to you to know about that. Still, there is something within, deep inside of you, that says, this is coming from outside. What if that thing wasn't there? And when I go through pain, do I go through that because of solace? Because if I do that, it means that I'm not really doing, I'm not really being what I preach. Because all these teachings, I think it's about taking you back to here and now. And here and now, there is no how to, there is no guru that can give you a lesson that is so powerful that you say, now I realize. No, it's you that realize it. And so if there is a use in every practice, is to see that they are useless. And so the better you become at practicing, the more you see that they don't fill up what you think you are going to fill up. And so you drop them.
so why is it so difficult for everybody to realize this thing you talk about, which is the here and now? Why is it
Yeah,
so difficult?
to me, it's because we are looking at feeling comfortable. We are looking at a place where we can feel comfortable. We are still looking at an emotional crutch. We need to picture, imagine something that we can go to. When I spoke earlier on about my mother, that's the most deep relationship that you have, and it's the point where you're the most fragile. If you're ready to let that too go, then there is nothing else that can replace that powerful crutch. And so this is why I think, to me, people need practices, because they are not strong enough inside with that realization. Because if you realize that the beauty of being, you know that there's nothing else. And there is nothing else that you need, because everything that you add is actually taking you away from it. And the very fact that you think you need to have something to practice, it says that you're not there. Otherwise, why would you practice? You practice to get stronger, to get better. So it's an idea of lack, deep rooted within. So that's what I think, Rishad.
So then how does one get this awareness? because there's hundreds of millions of books on self-help practices, religious texts, and all the rest of it, because obviously humans would love to get where you are or would like to be at. So how does one get that, what you talk about?
I think that's a very big question, Richard. If I knew before getting there that there was a place called there, perhaps I would have never got there, because I would start making ideas of what there would be like based on my memories, on my good memories, on my emotions. And so I'm totally screwed, because I'm not able to let life flow through without conditioning, without preconceived ideas. So what I would say is forget about getting there, and if there is somebody that is so appealing because it seems to be there and you want to try and emulate, that's the most dangerous thing to do, because you will never free yourself to be the same. We emulate, Richard, we emulate. Since we are born, we acquire behavior through emulation. And so this is so ingrained in us that as soon as we see something that we like, rather than become that, we emulate. And so we dress up like, people that seem to have made it. We behave, we say things in the same way that people that we admire so much say. But unless they are our words that comes from deep within, they have zero meaning. It's all emulation. It's so how do they do it? I would say stop asking that question that you need to get somewhere. Drop every question. But the thing is, it's not something that you can do. So, because the very intent to dropping a question, it means that you are making your ego even smarter, trying to outsmart itself, which is never going to happen. So you're just making it more cunning. So just relax. What I would say is there's no place to go, which is better. There is no way to feel which is better than the way that the place you are, the way you feel, and who you are. So stop thinking everything. It's a better place. Just accept where you are. And if you can't accept it, accept that you can't. See it. That's really not sure that there is any teaching that could make these things become a realization. However, I think coaching can really help. And otherwise, I wouldn't be doing coaching. And I've resisted this a long time. We spoke about this, and I hated the life coaching term so much because I had my own biases and my misunderstanding. So coaching, this is for me what it should be doing. It should be allowing people to just process their own thinking, and you should be able to, through active listening and asking the right questions, to help the person unfold their limiting beliefs so that they see more. When they do it's a space that they find in themselves that they weren't aware that they had all the time. So, and that space to me corresponds to dropping something that something that was limiting them. So the more you drop, and the more you get there, you're there. So that's why coaching to me now makes so much sense, because it doesn't teach anything. It doesn't give you another belief. It doesn't give you anything else but a presence. And if the coach, to me, if the coach isn't silent really inside, it's better to stop the coaching for a while, pause for a second, find his silence again, and then do coaching, because you can be so present with that quality, not just doing this, and emulating, if you're happy, I show you happy so that we create that empathy. That kind of artificial stuff, to me, it's something really I'm not interested in. So is you are there because Richard. It's Richard. It's full Richard, totally Richard, listening to somebody, and 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 through questioning, it's a meditation. This is really meditation to me. So what do you do when you meditate? It's not like you close your eyes. That's a practice, which is fine, and it's very healthy practice, but that's got nothing to do with realizing your full self. That's a way to relax your body, to feel, to perceive your bodily sensation and everything, which is very powerful and very good, but it's got nothing to do with realizing this thing that it can come to you only as a grace. To me, this is it. In order to allow your divinity to come out, you have to trust it so much. It's an act of trust. And so you drop everything that you think you have to do. And so because you drop, it doesn't belong to you, but on the divine side of you, all you can do is the best you can do right here and now, not trying to achieve some kind of state. Forget the state. So that's why I think now coaching makes a lot of sense, because it's a meditation practice and everybody will find their own path, their own way for what is true to them. It's their journey, not yours or mine.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of wisdom shared there, Dino. And I know you didn't mean to share wisdom, but there was a lot of deep reflections in there. I think one of the things that one of the teachings of Zen say, when you practice Zen, you don't get more answers; you lose the questions. So,
True.
so you're arriving at less and less questions, which because that's the ego mind. But why do I? And how do I do this? And what? And then and you're not going to get the answer. Well, you must do that because you're going to do that, and, because everything has a flawed, limited type of perception. So, deeping into that stillness and awareness. And just to clarify, I think what coaching is, as you described, is how you see coaching to you, and that's really important because everyone has their own processes and methods, and I'm all for that. Obviously, I align greatly with your method and your processes, if you can call it such a thing. Again, um, in the not having, and at the same time, I my journey and my coaching is very different to yours, but very similar to yours, and so um, I and that's why I can get along with coaches and people from across all sides. You come to me with psychology, Jungian philosophy, ideology. You come to me with spirituality, religion. I say, whatever it is for you that works for you, that's great. Also, on the emulation side, from my perspective, we are generally created like that, and to me, it's like almost like a divine installation that we mimic and imitate. You see it in the primates as well, because we want to become like that. But the catch is that you want to become like what you think this man looks like or this woman looks like, but what you want is the feeling that they are. So you could imitate them, and that can take you to a point, and that's why you have gurus and you have teachers and you have all these types of people. But to get beyond that, and in any sort of spiritual tradition, or you could say in the Zen traditions or in the Buddhist traditions, they'll take you somewhere, but then they'll say, now we're going to have to go away. So, Alan Watts, in one of his things, says that the guru, you come to him, say, teach me the way. And he sits with you and says, come, you got to, wash the dishes and soak the pots, and you got to clean this and you clean that. And then you say, oh, it's so difficult. And he said, that's not enough. And then do more and do more, because your ego mind wants to say, there must be this. And he's done it. And eventually the guru lets you in on the secret. It's like, this is all just to distract you. Because if I told you, that there's actually isn't anything to do, you tell me, well, then I'm not believing it. But now, when the suffering grows so much and it all just collapses and I just can't do it. And the guru says, well, now you know. Now you know. So there is so much wisdom in what you're saying. Ultimately, it speaks of the truth in our nature, and I think it goes beyond helping you find your problems. It's more terms that we use in the wider context so people can get some understanding. It's almost like enlightenment. Now, what enlightenment is, I don't profess to know, but I say enlightenment is the process of lightening the load of your conditioned mind. Lightening, you just start dropping layers, which making you lighter. And eventually, when you don't know who you are and you don't know anything and you know nothing, you become light, as a child is, without perceptions, without me being the doer, is me being the participant in life. So it's so lovely to have reflections of someone that I resonate so beautifully with. And I'd love to talk so much more to so many different topics that we haven't explored. But I think this will give people a taste for what you are, if there is anything that you are, and uh, and to experience that. So yeah, anything else that you want to share, add to that?
No, Rishad, I really loved this conversation, and like you, I could go on and on. This is what I love talking about, and so like you, I could spend days and nights reflecting and pondering on this. And so, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you about. We really do resonate a lot, and as you said, although our methods might be different, we're trying to get to the same point where we empower people, not that we give them some more crutches to depend on. So that's really what is important at the end of the day. So thank you so
And so,
much.
you're welcome. And how can someone get in touch with you? And any specific, the website, or is there? Oh, right, we didn't tell about your book. So please just tell me about the book. We were going to come to that, but we didn't even get started on that. Just quickly, what's the name of your book, and where can we find it, and where can we find you online?
Okay. So the name of the book is The Way of the Wind, the English version, or La Via del Vento in the Italian version. It's available in both versions, and it's available online on Amazon, or even on the libraries on the Italian version. The book is really a journey. To even the title, The Way of the Wind, it's a journey of becoming lighter. And so the spirit and the wind have this similarity. So it's a good metaphor for me. And so it's a journey that I hope it will inspire people to find their own journey. It talks about intuition, how that manifests and how you follow it, and the uncertainty that falls with that. But you go because you trust the unknown. And so this is what I talk about in the book. And how do they find me? I hope that in the next couple of weeks, my website is going to be ready, launched for everybody to go and look. And in the meantime, until that happens, they can find me on LinkedIn, so they can send me a message, a direct message.
Perfect, Dino. Such a pleasure to see you again, my friend, and we'll be in touch. Take care, and we'll chat to you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rishad. Yes, we'll do. Thanks a lot. Thank you.